Some of the most important parts of my life have originated from storytelling. You think I've done all these videos just for the fun of it? No, I got here starting with 5-year-old me having a severe addiction to Power Rangers and Ben 10. Fictional stories have been with me from the moment I started breathing. That being said, when you end up so focused on this life like myself, you realize that some stories kinda suck. Whether they're just really boring or poorly written or what have you, not every creation is going to end up being something you like, but it's not as black nor white as it may seem. Some stories are usually pretty good, but end up having ways that they could have been done better. But usually I can forgive these types if in the end it all wraps up well. But what happens when you get a really good series, perhaps even perfect, and then have all of that goodwill flushed down the drain by a poor ending? I've had this idea for probably over a year now. It's something I've really wanted to cover, as I felt myself finding more examples of series where I really enjoy and really love them all the way through, getting endings that, at least in my opinion, weren't up to the standard that had been set this far. That's why today I want to take a look at some of these examples, examine the shows themselves, and go into why I felt these endings left such a poor taste in my mouth. And obviously, this should go without saying, but just to make it clear, I will be talking about full spoilers for all of these series, but you clicked on a video about endings, so what were you expecting? Starting with Patient Zero. Okay, now, ironically, I said Patient Zero, but I know someone's going to call out that this is actually the most recent thing on the list. So, the reason I say Patient Zero is just because it's the first of the three I want to focus on that I watched. To preface, I absolutely adore Violet Evergarden. It is a 13-episode series focused heavily on Violet as she travels throughout the world as an auto-memory doll, speaking to all sorts of different people and learning about all types of experiences as she writes letters for those who don't know how to put their feelings into words. Violet starts as a very robotic and almost soulless character, which makes sense. She was raised to do nothing but take orders and kill. She's a child soldier, and a major appeal of the series is how she grows to overcome that experience and her personality. She learns to cry, love, and feel joy, and it's a really well-written character arc. Granted, I absolutely love these types of characters regardless. One of my favorite characters is Aigis from Persona 3, and Violet is stupidly similar to Aigis in many different ways, beyond just her similar appearance. A major theme of Violet Evergarden is loss, and how you can move forward in a world where you've lost someone you care for. It's represented and shown in so many different ways: the loss of a family member who is battling with an incurable disease, the loss of a lover, someone who has lost everything, the loss of freedom, etc. Violet Evergarden does an exceptional job at representing loss, acceptance, growth, and self-discovery. One of the most iconic episodes from the anime has to be with Anne, a young girl whose mother is facing a terminal illness and knows she won't be alive to watch Anne grow up. Despite that, the episode ends with a montage of Anne growing up as she receives a letter written from her mother every year for her birthday for the next 50 years. It's a genuinely incredible episode that defines Violet's themes of loss and acceptance, and there are many more episodes like this throughout such a short series that really hit home. On top of that, the anime is one of the most visually beautiful things I've ever seen. It's really well animated and well drawn, and helps to pull those emotional moments together all the more. And to be fair, that's to be expected considering it's animated by KyoAni, who is probably a top 3 studio within anime. But how does Violet Evergarden actually end? Well, the ending of the 13-episode series is fine. It's actually my ideal ending, and perfectly caps off Violet's story, if you're willing to ignore the teaser at the end. But unfortunately, Violet doesn't actually end there, because Violet got 2 more movies. The first movie is okay. It's pretty good, but it's complete filler and isn't really worth mentioning. Very good if you just want more Violet content though. The second movie, however, is the conclusion to the series, and is why I even thought to make this video. First, let's talk about Old Gilbert. See this guy? Yeah, he's a big piece of shit. Not the biggest one, somehow, but definitely still one. Gilbert is a very far from perfect person. He's Violet's mentor growing up, and, most importantly, the person she falls in love with. Gilbert's death is what kicks Violet's arc into gear, and he essentially haunts the narrative throughout the series. It's implied once that Gilbert could be alive, as his body wasn't found, but I think there's so many different possibilities with that I seriously doubt he actually lived. You've gotta be kidding me. Okay, so remember all those themes of loss, acceptance, growth, self-discovery that I was talking about? Throw it all out the window. It's not worth anything anymore. Gilbert is still alive, Violet goes back to him, and she has not learned a damn thing since episode 1. A big thing Violet did was that she never referred to him with his first name, only ever calling him Major, and even in the big, "Look guys, they're together" moment, she still calls him Major. What was the point of this series again? Violet hasn't grown at all. You could maybe argue she has her own agency now, but that's completely thrown out the window by her still going back to and living the rest of her life with him. We're also not going to get into the age difference and how many problems there are with that, because I'm not even sure I can talk about it without getting this video sent to the Shadow Realm by YouTube's TOS, but yeah, that certainly doesn't help Gil's case. And Gilbert being alive could have worked. I still think it takes away from the story, but if it had been written in a sense where Violet still leaves him regardless to return to her job as an auto-memory doll, it at least keeps the character arc a little bit intact, because you still have her evolving and showing that she's changed since she last saw him. Even if he's alive, this shows that she's no longer dependent on him and sees him for who he truly is, not the idolized and perfect version of him she believed him to be in her mind. Instead, the ending we got is that of a happy ending for the sake of a happy ending. It is completely and utterly devoid of all the story's established themes up to this point. It makes no sense, and it's just a horrible way to end off the series. What's the message supposed to be here? If you wait long enough for your dead lover to come back, they will actually just magically appear. Don't bother getting over it, they're actually hidden away on a secret island that you will find eventually. Another way I think this ending could have worked is if it was portrayed negatively or as a tragedy, choosing to be a cautionary tale over your regular happy ending. But they didn't do that. It's portrayed as this perfect happy reunion despite what is going on screen, in my eyes reflecting the opposite. The author wants you to be happy for Violet even when it makes no sense to be. This ending still pisses me off to this day, and somehow I've seen it be mostly pretty beloved, and look, to each their own. If you like it, that's perfectly fine, but I just don't understand how. I don't get it. Maybe I missed something, but I despise this ending and would go as far as to say it's a mockery of everything the series has been leading up to at that point. I like happy endings, but that happy ending, just like any ending, has to be earned. It has to be logical and make sense within the story, and this ending doesn't do any of that. Violet shouldn't have gone back to Gilbert, and if anything, all it does is glorify Gilbert's actions, which shouldn't ever be the case. His actions shouldn't be glorified, they should be called out and criticized. Now, on the topic of endings needing to be earned, let's shift the tone a bit and go to an ending that isn't exactly a happy ending, but one that lands in a more grey area. Yeah, let's talk about the ending to the 2003 version of Full Metal Alchemist.
Full Metal Alchemist. Full Metal Alchemist.
I want to start this the same way I started the Violet Evergarden section, by giving praise to Full Metal 03, because while it's a very different story to the manga and Brotherhood, it's still a great show that I do think it's worth giving a chance. I absolutely wouldn't say that as a whole it's better than its counterparts, but there are aspects it genuinely does handle more efficiently. For me, the biggest example is the homunculi. The homunculi in Mangahood aren't bad, they're obviously still great, but in 03, they're treated as a lot more human. Lurth starts out as a villain, but eventually gets a great redemption and made me genuinely care for her as a character. While King Bradley is still a homunculi, he isn't actually Wrath in this version, he's instead Pride, and the person who is Wrath is an entirely new character, being that of Azumi's son, who also has Ed's old limbs. Sloth takes the image of Ed and Al's mother, etc. All of these are great changes that connect them further, not just to our protagonists, but also connect them more to the themes of the show. Also, since FMA 03 only got to fully adapt up to Hughes' death, it means they mostly stuck with the characters that had been there for the first 25 episodes, instead of introducing new ones. Obviously, Azumi and her husband are there, as well as Rustin Valley, but the stories for both are pretty different, again with the inclusion of Wrath and such. But all in all, they got to focus and go harder on already introduced plot points, such as with the Israelan genocide and Scar. FMA 03 as a whole is a much darker series. Plenty of characters who are introduced don't get to make it to the end of the story. Scar dies in 03 compared to Mangahood having him live on. This tonal difference is especially clear with the show's true finale, Conqueror of Shamballa. Similar to Violet, FMA 03 ends with a movie instead of ending within the show itself, the show being left on a cliffhanger with Ed trapped in our world while Al has regained his body, but is biologically 4 years younger, not retaining any of his memories since the night of the transmutation. I don't like Conqueror of Shamballa, both as an ending to the series and as a movie. For two reasons. I just think the ending is depressing and unearned, and second of all, it's really goofy and impossible to take seriously in moments. You'll probably notice that I said FMAO 3 ends with Ed in our world, and that wasn't a miswording. The gate in the original series is a portal to our world in the 1900s. Ed goes there once he finds his father before returning to his world to finish his fight with the homunculi, only for Ed to go back there again after Alphonse is killed in order to save him. And okay, as genuinely as stupid as this is, I was willing to look past it, until the movie spends most of the time in our world and we get to see Ed learn about the fucking big German mustache man, who I am not going to say the name of because I'm already treading a very tight line by even talking about this. Something we learn about this world is that there are equivalents to characters from Ed's own world within it, such as Alphonse and King Bradley and Lust and Scar and May Hughes, who is racist. Oh my god. Yeah, guys, great subplot idea. Let's take this highly beloved character who was adored by everyone from the audience, and whose death is one of the most iconic parts of the series, and let's bring him back. Oh, really? I mean, yeah, that's a great idea. We should totally do that, 100%. No, wait, you didn't let me finish. Let's bring him back as a racist who also works for the German mustache man. What was the plan here? It's one thing to spend most of the movie's runtime in 1920s Germany, but it's another thing to bring back characters who are wildly beloved and make them like I can't even say the word, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. This is blatant disrespect and sabotaging of those characters' legacies. And on the topic of characters, Amestris, the actual world FMA takes place in, barely gets any screen time. We don't get any conclusion or a chance to say goodbye to many of the characters we spent 51 episodes with. And to make matters worse, Ed and Al leave them behind. Yes, that includes Winry, which is probably the biggest sin of this ending. Winry is left completely and utterly alone. She finally gets to see Ed after years of not knowing where he was, and he and Al leave her without so much as a goodbye. The final frame of her in 03 is her left alone with only photos of people who she once loved. And she's given no conclusion or resolution after that because the series ends. That's it. It's nice that Ed and Al do get to reunite, but in hindsight, Ed is also left off worse than he was even in the very first episode. Yes, he completed his goal of restoring Al's body, but his own body is still untouched. His arm is still missing, which leaves Al's goal uncompleted. He doesn't end up with Renry, he can't do alchemy, and everyone he knew and cared about is in an entirely different world except for Al. Al is the only thing he has left now. It's such a sad and blatantly depressing end for Ed, which I don't think he as a character deserved. Ed is far from perfect, he messes up and makes mistakes in the show more than I can count, but this ending is just so distant from how he actually should have ended up. Also, one of the final lines of this movie is a teaser towards World War II that I genuinely just could not take seriously. The movie as a whole feels like the writers did multiple lines of illicit substances and then forgot they had a movie to write, so they just threw whatever the hell they could at the wall and kept what stuck. So now, FMAO 3 ends with a multiverse story where Edward Elric explores 1920s Germany and learns about the big bad mustache man and his soldiers. This feels like a shitpost fanfic someone would write. Here's a hot take. I don't like this anime very much. Yeah, I see you aiming your eyes at that dislike button. Go on, do it. Press it. I'll give it to you for free. Now, why don't I like it? Okay, well, in all honesty, I wouldn't say I dislike it, I just didn't click with it. Well, it has some fairly good characters, and looks visually pretty great. I just felt it was too short, and overall didn't expand on its premise enough. On top of that, I didn't really fuck with the protagonist very much. He starts off the show as just a complete asshole, and while he kinda gets better, it wasn't nearly enough for me to actually see him as likable. But what really soured me on the show overall was the ending. If you know me, you know I love my superhero stuff, Spider-Man being my biggest and longest case, but to focus on the anime side, I am a huge My Hero Academia fan. I adore my hero because he's so unashamedly inspired by comic books, and the way that over the course of the series it definitively changes the definition of a hero from those with powers to instead mean anyone who reaches out their hand is so unequivocally beautiful and an incredible message. Charlotte had the chance to do a similar thing, even sharing a similar premise with My Hero Academia, both series being centered around teenagers who go to a superpowered school and learn to use their abilities for good. Hell, they even have a character who's dark-haired with glasses and has super speed as one of the main cast, or at least as a prominent part of the cast. And for the record, I'm not saying Charlotte should be a carbon copy of My Hero Academia, of course not, that'd be stupid. But my issue with its ending is how stupidly mean-spirited it is in nature. The series ends with Otosaka going across the world to steal the abilities of literally every single superpowered teenager on the planet, in turn making him go mentally insane, losing his memories and forgetting who he is and his purpose. Now, I don't like Otosaka as a character, like I said before, but the fact that no one, not a single soul, not even his goddamn girlfriend, brings up the moral issues of this, nor does anyone try to stop it, is absolutely insane. They fucking tortured him, and their plan sucks as well. Because not only is it obviously bad for Otosaka, considering this potentially could have killed him, since it should be mentioned it was just him, there was no other preparation for this, he had basically zero help outside of his brother removing the powers of everyone in Japan, but, you know, Otosaka was removing the rest of the world. They didn't know what powers were out there. What if there was someone who countered his ability? What if someone was invisible and easily got the jump on him? But it should also be brought up that, again, they took powers from everyone. This doesn't just mean get bad people, this means everyone and anyone, including those who were using their abilities for good. Oh, you were using your powers to kill cancer? Damn, too bad. That's gone now. Any lives that could have been saved from the thousands of different people using their powers for good are now lost. And this could have been an interesting subject to tackle. Is it okay to steal powers that will help hundreds, potentially even thousands of people, if it means the person with those abilities will be left in danger? But no, the show doesn't go after any of this. None of these themes are explored at all, and in all honesty, that's definitely because of Charlotte's lack of time. The biggest issue this series suffers from is pacing. 13 episodes was way too short, and because of that, you end up with a lot of crazy twists and whatnot, with no proper time to take it all in, to actually explore these concepts being set up. It is not only a defeatist mentality to end your show with, oh, all superpowers are bad and get people hurt and shouldn't exist, but it's also lazy. That's how you want to wrap this up? By having Otosaka go across the entire world and just stealing powers with zero thematic exploration? Just the reasoning of, superpower bad and nothing else of actual substance to add to that. I don't know, man, this show just kind of annoys me. I feel like it had such good potential, but they really fumbled on important aspects, which just affected my enjoyment of the show. It should have been 20 episodes plus, but the fact that it was around 12 to 13 really stifled it. Bad endings have become more common lately. I almost talked about Arcane in this video, but honestly I felt that was too easy. It sucks because I still think Season 1 of Arcane is an absolute classic in numerous ways, but Season 2, dear god, what a train wreck. There have also been some other examples. I haven't seen Stranger Things past Season 1, and I don't intend to watch the rest of it, considering I just didn't care for Season 1 at all. But considering fans were so upset that they literally formed an entire conspiracy theory that the ending was actually all a lie, and there's a secret 9th episode that will be dropped in January, only for it to not drop in January, I think that says more than I could ever write about how bad that ending actually was. I also haven't read Oshinoko, but considering what I've heard about the ending from friends and all across the internet, yeah, that ending sucked too. But on the note of Oshinoko, Akasaka has basically become notorious at this point for writing incredibly good series, only to give them disappointing or downright awful endings. Prior to this was Kaguya-sama Love is War, and you better be damn glad that anime finale movie isn't out right now, because I'm an anime-only Kaguya fan, and they did that anime adaptation disgustingly dirty. I probably could have written a full segment on those recent OVAs, but I just dropped an hour-long video and I'm not looking to do it again. Continuing on, just a few days before I wrote the Full Metal section of the script, Chainsaw Man Part 2 was announced to be ending, and you won't believe what people are also upset about. But again, while I definitely plan on checking it out very soon, I can't really give my thoughts on Chainsaw Man because I haven't seen more than 5 minutes of the first episode from a few years ago, because as soon as I went to watch it, my personal life got in the way. I'm gonna dive off these honorable mentions before I end up talking about Gorilla God's Go-To Girl, which had potentially the most dogshit ending I've ever seen, and I'm fighting the urge to talk about it considering I know not a single soul has ever heard of that anime, and honestly, good, I wish I were you right now, to be honest. And to be clear, the fan reception isn't always trustworthy to know if an ending is good or not. I already kind of brought it up with Violet Evergarden, and how that ending was mostly positively received from what I've seen, even if I think it's downright horrendous. But I've seen the opposite thing happen with something like My Hero Academia, where people relentlessly dogged on the ending despite it being what is almost a perfect ending for the series, minus some minor criticisms like the pacing and the handling of certain characters. You see plenty of people complain and shit on Deku for giving up his quirk in order to save someone, but you don't see those same people jumping on Manga Hood Edward Elric for doing the exact same thing. But that's a whole other rant I probably shouldn't get into, or else we'll be here all day. My point is to say that writing endings is obviously not easy. If they were easy, I would be out of a video idea right now. Especially when you're writing for a long-running series, trying to remember everything you did and make sure all the important plot points, character arcs, etc. are wrapped up in a way that is satisfying to the audience who have given you their time, which can be as low as weeks to potentially decades in rare cases, can all be super stressful on the mind. But that also just makes it all the worse on the audience when a series they've invested their time in ends up screwing up in the last moments. Particularly in a world where so many shows and movies are fighting for your time now, all of these hours spent on one thing could have been invested in something better that could potentially have become a new obsession for you. We still get plenty of well-written endings too, to be fair. And there are also some stories out there that straight up don't get endings, being cut off before they could be given the time they needed. I still mourn you, Spectacular Spider-Man. So, in a way, I guess we should be grateful that many stories get to provide an ending at all, even if some end up being way worse than others. And obviously, when I say we should be grateful, that's not a defense. You can be grateful that a writer got to end off the universe the way they wanted to, while also being able to admit the way they ended was a pile of ass. Like, for example, could you imagine if I did this video without writing